Hi, I am Dr. Selvaraj, your surgical educator from Malaysia. Welcome back to my series of surgical teaching videocasts. These are meant mainly for undergraduate medical students doing the surgical clerkship rotation. I promise you will become competent in clinical problem solving and surgical decision making if you are going to watch these videos over and over again. Today, in this episode, I am going to talk one of the causes for generalized abdominal pain, that is the small bowel obstruction. That is what I am going to discuss in this episode. So after watching this video, all of you should be able to know the different causes for generalized abdominal pain, epidemiology, etiology, pathology, clinical features, investigation and treatment of small bowel obstruction. Of course, I have included a mind map, a diagnostic algorithm and a treatment algorithm. So coming to the different causes for generalized abdominal pain. So this column you are seeing the different causes, and here you are seeing the history and physicals or the clinical features. So I'm going to mention only the different causes. I request my viewers to pause the video and read all these details. So what are the different causes? Number one, small bowel obstruction, that is generalized abdominal pain. Gastroenteritis. Usually gastroenteritis is a medical problem, or it could be ileus. Ileus is paralytic ileus, or it could be large bowel obstruction. Colonic pseudo obstruction, or this is also known as Ogilvie syndrome, or it could be acute mesenteric ischemia. So these are the different causes for generalized abdominal pain. You have to read this column to know what are the characteristic feature for each one of these, the causes. So coming to the epidemiology, what is small bowel obstruction? This is stoppage of craniocaudal propulsion of bowel contents due to either narrowing of the bowel lumen or complete blockage of the bowel lumen. This is one of the common surgical emergency, very serious in nature, and it demands early diagnosis and immediate intervention. Small bowel obstruction is more common and more severe than the large bowel obstruction. Post-op adhesive obstruction and obstructed inguinal hernia are the two common causes for the small bowel obstruction. The prevalence of small bowel obstruction is approximately 100 to 500 per 100,000 people who have not undergone any previous abdominal surgery. Suppose if they have undergone abdominal surgery, the incidence will go up to 600 per 100,000 patients. So coming to the etiology, what are the various causes? Broadly, you can divide it into dynamic ileus and adynamic ileus. Dynamic means dynamic cause or mechanical obstruction. So this you can divide into three causes: intraluminal, intramural and extramural. So if it is intraluminal, usually it could be a fecal impaction or because of the hard fecal matter, or could be some foreign bodies, or it could be bezovas, could be a trichobezoar, that is hairball, or it could be a phytobezoar because of the vegetable material going and obstructing the lumen, or it could be a gallstone ileus. Mural cause, it could be stricture because of benign strictures like TB and Crohn's disease, or it could be a malignant stricture, or other causes are intussusception and volvulus also. The extramural cause, usually this is the commonest cause, two causes. One is band, congenital band, or maybe post-op adhesion, or it could be a inguinal hernia, obstructed inguinal hernia. So this is the same thing you are seeing here also. And what is this adynamic ileus, or this is also known as paralytic ileus? paralysis of intestinal musculature. It is characterized by absence of the peristalsis, and patient also will have little pain. What are the common causes for paralytic ileus? Post-operative. All post-op patients, they will regain the peristalsis only after 48 hours. Or it could be any peritonitis will cause adynamic ileus or paralytic ileus. Hypokalemia also will produce paralytic ileus. Pelvic or spinal fracture can also produce, and parturition or delivery. So these are the different causes for paralytic ileus. This is the pie chart. You see the commonest cause is post-op adhesion. You can see here. And then the obstructed hernia. These are the two common causes. So all other causes are inflammatory cause, carcinoma, that is NHL in small bowel, or fecal impaction, pseudo obstruction, and miscellaneous causes. So this is regarding the etiology. So coming to the pathology, okay, the peristalsis. What will happen to the peristalsis? Initially, there will be increased peristalsis. Proximal to the level of obstruction, there is increased peristalsis. Distal to the obstruction, normal peristalsis. Eventually, initially, there is increased peristalsis. This is known as barborygmy. Finally, okay, the intestine will become flaccid and paralytic. So it will become silent abdomen. So regarding the distension of the abdomen in small bowel obstruction is because of enormous accumulation of both fluid and gas. Fluid is accumulated from, okay, the ingested fluid, or the accumulation of the digestive juices, or the water and electrolyte excretion or secretion into the lumen. Gas is accumulated because of swallowed gas, and all the gas accumulated in the lumen of the bowel, or bacterial activity. So these are the causes for enormous amount of fluid and gas in, that is the cause for the abdominal distension. These patients, because of continuous vomiting, they will have fluid and electrolyte imbalance. So because of the vomiting, okay, they will lose the fluid, decrease oral intake also, sequestration of the fluid into the third space, that is in the bowel lumen, and defective intestinal absorption. These are the different causes for fluid and electrolyte imbalance. So, and the end, if blood supply is also compromised, then your patient here in this picture, you are seeing a band obstruction causing a intestinal obstruction. Eventually, you are seeing a dusky color intestine. Probably it is going for strangulation. So bowel is trapped by the neck of the hernia or band, or maybe stricture also, or a post-op adhesion. Initially there will be venous obstruction, venous congestion, edema of the tissue. So what will happen? The arterial blood supply also will be decreased, and eventually gangrene will ensue in this area. So there are two types of obstruction you must know. One is open-ended obstruction, that is one point obstruction interferes with the prograde propulsion of the bowel content. Whereas the another type is closed loop obstruction. The lumen of the bowel is occluded at 2 points, thus preventing both the prograde and retrograde movement of the bowel contents. So the closed loop obstruction is more dangerous. So coming to the clinical features, first symptom. So it is characterized by the 4 features known as the quartet. If we are having 3 things, that is called triad. If it is 5 things, for example, Chakas triad and Reynolds pentet, here it is 4 things in the small bowel obstruction. So it is called quartet. So what are the characteristic feature? Number 1, colicky abdominal pain. So pain is colicky in nature, that lasts 3 to 5 minutes per episode. Patient is comfortable in between the attack. That is why it is called colicky. Number 2, patient will start vomiting, and this is bilious in nature. Patient also will go for abdominal distension because of accumulation of lot of gas and fluid. I told you already. Eventually, the patient also will go either constipation, that means patient won't pass the stool, but still he will be passing the gas. In case of obstipation, he won't even pass the gas also. That is obstipation. So you have to remember, see here the pain and the vomiting, the abdominal distension and constipation or obstipation. Here in this picture, you are seeing the abdominal distension. This is because of accumulation of lot of fluid and air in the bowel lumen. So these are the signs. In inspection, you can watch the patient for signs of dehydration and shock. You can see the distension of the abdomen. You can measure the girth, and serially you have to measure the girth, abdominal girth. So sometimes you can see the visible intestinal peristalsis, that is in a step ladder pattern. You can see that visible intestinal peristalsis. If the cause is because of some neoplasm or intussusception, you can even feel a mass in the abdomen. And you can look for, if the patient underwent some surgery in the past, you can look for evidence of any scar in the abdomen. So coming to the palpation, you have to look for the hernial orifices for whether they are free or patient is having an obstructed hernia. You must look. Then you have to look for whether the patient is having fever, tenderness, rebound tenderness, and you must also do all abdominal examination. You must do the digital examination. So if the patient normally, if it is a normal, intestinal obstruction, usually patient won't have not even tenderness. But if the patient in an intestinal small bowel obstruction, if patient is also having generalized abdominal tenderness and rebound tenderness, probably the patient, the bowel has already gone for strangulation. Suppose if the patient is, the next stage is perforation. If patient is perforated and already going for perforative peritonitis, apart from rebound tenderness, the patient also will have board-like rigidity. That also you have to remember. So coming to the percussion, it is tympanic note. You can see because lot of gas inside the small bowel, you can have a tympanic note. Coming to the auscultation, initially there is excessive peristalsis, or this is also known as barborrhygmy or tinkling sound, high pitch sound you can hear to begin with. Eventually, everything will become, the ileus, that is the paralytic ileus, or it will become aperistaltic. So you cannot hear any bowel sounds. So the abdomen will become silent abdomen. So these are the characteristic features. So these are the clinical pictures you are seeing here. This patient, you can see in the abdomen, this is the distended small bowel loops, or this is known as visible intestinal peristalsis you are seeing there. So you have to look for, in this patient, you are seeing a bulge here. Probably it may be a female patient, so probably it may be a femoral hernia going for an obstruction, and patient is developing this VIP. You can see there. Yeah, you can see this in a step ladder pattern. Here also the abdomen is distended. Most probably a patient is having bowel obstruction. Here you are seeing a case of inguinal hernia that has already gone for strangulation. This is the very narrow neck, this area. So patient already gone for strangulation of the bowel. So coming to the investigation, as a routine, you should do the blood examination and urine examination also. This is a routine. This is not diagnostic of small bowel obstruction. So you have to do the full blood count, that is the blood hemoglobin, hematocrit, FBC, bleeding clotting time, and electrolytes especially you must do. Because of continuous vomiting, and blood urea nitrogen also you must do. And then you have to do urine examination for evidence of any sugar. You must do all this urine examination or any infection in the urine, but this is not diagnostic for small bowel obstruction. So what is the diagnostic test? In all acute abdomen, you must do a chest X-ray erect to rule out pneumoperitoneum. Here in these two pictures, you are seeing the free gas under diaphragm here, free gas under diaphragm here and here also. So this is probably, apart from intestinal obstruction, if it is already gone for strangulation and perforation, so you can see this picture. So the important picture is you have to do an abdominal X-ray erect, where you will be seeing air fluid levels. Here this is an erect picture where you are seeing an abdominal picture. You are seeing lot of air fluid levels here. Multiple air fluid levels. This is an erect picture. This is an abdominal X-ray supine picture where you can see the dilated bowel loops that is more than 3 centimeters in diameter. You should also look for the valvulae conniventis. This is nothing but the mucosal folds in the small bowel. And if it is a complete obstruction, you cannot see any gas anywhere in the colon. If it is a complete obstruction in the small bowel, you cannot see gas in the colon. So you can also do ultrasound, but this is also, it is not a must. So sometime you can see for the dilated bowel loops, you can see the fluid levels, and you can see the mass also. You can see this is a mass, this is the dilated bowel loops. So the same picture here also you are seeing, this is a mass, but this is not a must. But you can do a CT abdomen if you want to know whether the bowel is viable or not. Here you need not give oral contrast because the fluid and gas inside will act as a contrast. So you have to give only IV contrast. Here you are seeing the dilated bowel with bright enhancement of viable bowel wall with IV contrast. So you are seeing the air inside and you are seeing the enhancement, the rim in enhancement or the enhancement of the viable bowel wall. You can see it here. Not only here, you can see in all the bowel. Okay, you can see that enhancement. So this bowel is viable. So this is a cross-sectional view. This is a coronal view. Here also you can see the bowel. Yeah, the bowel wall you can see, and the bowel wall is okay. The enhancement you are seeing. So here also the bowel is viable. Suppose if you are not seeing this enhancement, then you can say the bowel is not viable or non-viable. So coming to the treatment of acute intestinal obstruction, okay, you have to do first gastrointestinal drainage via nasogastric tube. Then you have to correct the fluid and electrolyte imbalance, you have to correct. Then you have to relieve the obstruction. Surgical management is necessary for most of the cases of intestinal obstruction, but should be delayed until resuscitation is complete. Suppose your obstruction is incomplete obstruction, you can try conservative management, and by this conservative management, majority of these patients, the obstruction will get relieved. Suppose if the conservative treatment is not, effective, then only you have to do surgery. Okay, provided there is no sign of strangulation, that is also important. You have to do the conservative treatment only if there is no strangulation or no evidence of any closed loop obstruction. Then only you have to go for the conservative. This is the conservative treatment. You have to keep the patient NPO, half-hourly vitals you have to take, you have to catheterize the bladder, and you have to do the IO chart. That is input output you have to do, or urine output you have to measure. You have to measure the abdominal girth also every now and then. NGT aspiration you have to do, you have to start IV fluids, and of course you have to start the antibiotics also. Broad spectrum IV antibiotics you have to give. This is the conservative management. What they call is you have to drip and suck. That is what they are telling in surgical dictum. You have to drip the patient and you have to suck them through the NG tube. So what is the sign of recuperation? The patient is becoming all right. So if there is relief from symptoms, pain and vomiting is becoming less, then okay, that means sign of patient is recovering. Improvement of general condition and vitals, decrease amount of NG aspirate, abdominal girth is coming down, and return of bowel sounds also. So conservative management, if all these things are happening in your patient, you can continue the conservative management, can be continued, patient may become all right. He may not need any surgical intervention at all. So what are the indications for surgical intervention? If it is an obstructed hernia and clinical features suspicious of intestinal strangulation, suppose your patient is having generalized abdominal tenderness as well as rebound tenderness, then you have to suspect intestinal strangulation, you have to intervene early. Obstruction in a virgin abdomen, no previous history of any surgery, then also okay, indication for early surgical intervention. So what are the principles of surgical intervention? So you have to manage the segment at the side of the obstruction, and you have to manage the distended proximal bowel, and you have to manage the underlying cause for obstruction. I told you there are many causes. So whatever is the cause, if it is an post-op adhesion, you have to do what is called adhesiolysis. If it is intussusception, okay, depending upon whether the bowel is viable or not. If it is viable, you can just reduce the intussusception. If it is non-viable bowel, then you have to go for resection and anastomosis. Whatever bowel is strangulated or already non-viable, you have to resect and you have to do end-to-end anastomosis. So the principle is you have to relieve the bands and adhesion. You have to resect the gangrenous bowel segment and you have to do reconstruction. Either you can do end-to-end anastomosis, or if it is an unprepared bowel, then you can go for stoma temporarily. So definitive measures you have to do, of course, in all cases, exploratory laparotomy, because we don't know what is the cause for this obstruction. Then if it is a adhesion, you can do what is called adhesiolysis or band lysis. Then if it is already strangulated, do bowel resection. External drainage, that is stoma, I told you, if it is unprepared bowel. Otherwise, you can do the primary end-to-end anastomosis. Or sometimes if it is a growth, unresectable growth, then you can go for short-circuiting operation or bypass surgery. So this is here in this film, you are seeing a post-op adhesive obstruction. Yeah, this is the dilated bowel you are seeing. How will you intraoperatively, differentiate viable bowel from non-viable bowel? So in viable bowels, regarding the circulation, it is dark color, becomes lighter, visible pulsation in the mesenteric artery. This is a viable bowel. In non-viable bowel, dark color remains as such. No detectable pulsation in the mesentery, the arterial pulsation. So general appearance, in viable bowel it is shiny, whereas non-viable bowel it is dull and lusterless. And intestinal musculature is firm. In viable bowel, it is flabby and thin, and friable also in non-viable bowel. Peristalsis may be observed in viable bowel, whereas in non-viable bowel there is no peristalsis. You must also know about paralytic ileus or adynamic ileus. So what are the causes for this paralytic ileus? I told all post-op patients for 48 hours, especially if you are doing laparotomy, it will take 48 hours for the intestine to regain the peristalsis. Or, fracture spine, any retroperitoneal hemorrhage, cast at superior mesenteric artery syndrome, that's another one, that also can produce adynamic ileus. All peritonitis, all cases of uremia and hypokalemia, the mesenteric artery thrombosis, and all these things can produce, the paralytic ileus. The clinical features here also, abdominal distension plus diffuse abdominal discomfort. Vomiting also will be there. It is bilious in nature, but the abdomen is silent. Usually, high-pitched tinkling sound, very rarely you can see. Initially, usually you won't hear. It is silent abdomen only. Majority of these cases. Investigation, blood investigation. You must do the serum electrolyte and creatinine because patient is having, repeated vomiting. You can do in doubtful cases ultrasound. You can do. You can see the dilated bowel lobes, but the gold standard investigation for all small bowel obstruction is plain abdominal X-ray erect. You can see the dilated loops. You are seeing, but you are not seeing any air fluid levels. That is, this is how you have to differentiate paralytic ileus from the other causes of small bowel obstruction. Here in paralytic ileus, you won't see any air fluid levels. So what is the treatment if it is paralytic ileus? So you have to manage it conservatively. Keep the patient NPO, nasogastric aspiration. You have to correct fluid and electrolyte imbalance. Of course, you have to give antibiotics also. If patient is having this because of some drugs, stop those drugs or change to some other drugs. Prevention, okay, you can put a nasogastric aspiration and you have to correct fluid and electrolyte imbalance. This is the mind map for small bowel obstruction. So etiology, intraluminal causes, fecal matter or fecal matter inside, worm bolus obstruction, bezoar was like trichobezoar and phytobezoar, gallstone ileus. Mural causes, stricture because of TB or Crohn's or malignant strictures like NHL, that is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, intussusception and volvulus. Extramural, okay, post-op adhesion and obstructed inguinal hernia. Coming to the pathology, the distension is due to accumulation of enormous gas and fluid. The peristalsis is increased to begin with, and eventually there won't be any peristalsis. Patient will go for silent abdomen. Fluid and electrolyte imbalance also will occur, and eventually the strangulation also can occur in some of these small bowel obstruction. What are the clinical features? I told you the quartet: abdominal pain, bilious vomiting, abdominal distension, constipation or obstipation. You can watch VIP, that is visible intestinal peristalsis, also in a step ladder pattern. If you percuss, you will have the patients have the tympanic note, and if you auscultate, to begin with, there is increased peristalsis or barborygmy, but in a late stage, okay, the patient usually they have silent abdomen. Coming to the investigations, the investigation or the gold standard investigation is just a simple abdominal X-ray erect. So here you can see multiple air fluid levels. You can see dilated bowel loops of more than 3 cm. You can make out the valvulae conniventis, and if it is a complete obstruction, you cannot see any gas in the colon, anywhere in the colon. If you want to know about the viability of the bowel, you can go for CT abdomen, where you can use only the IV contrast, where you can see the enhancement of the bowel wall. If it is there, that means the bowel is viable. Coming to the treatment, majority of these cases, especially if it is an incomplete obstruction, you can do conservative management. That consists of NPO and IV fluids, NGT aspiration and antibiotics. Surgery, you have to do exploratory laparotomy, and if there is adhesion, go for adhesiolysis. If it is already strangulated, do resection and do anastomosis. Especially you have to treat the underlying cause. If it is a volvulus, okay, depending upon what is the cause, you have to treat that cause for the small bowel obstruction. So this is the diagnostic algorithm. In all acute abdominal pain, you have to do a thorough history and physical. If it is a generalized tenderness and amylase is also increased more than 4 times, it is a case of pancreatitis. You have to confirm it by doing ultrasound or CT. Suppose patient is having generalized tenderness but amylase is normal. You can do an erect chest X-ray. If you are seeing a free gas under diaphragm, it is a case of perforated viscus. The localized tenderness comprises of all the inflammation like acute appendicitis, acute cholecystitis, acute pancreatitis, all will come under the localized tenderness. The colicky pain, little or no tenderness. So slight tenderness with colicky pain. The pain is central. You have to do an abdominal X-ray erect, small bowel obstruction. So if diagnosis is uncertain, then you can do, but barium nowadays we are not doing at all. So it is a case of small bowel obstruction. So if it is suprapubic pain, here also you have to do an abdominal X-ray. So you can see the large bowel obstruction here in the suprapubic area. If it is flank pain, then in the KUB area, then you have to do an IVU. Probably it is a case of renal colic. But nowadays we are not doing IVU, we are straight away, we are doing single slice, non-contrast helical CT. That is the investigation of choice for any stone. Any urolithiasis, you have to do a single slice, non-contrast helical CT. We are not doing IVU nowadays. So this is the treatment algorithm. So I think I have already discussed everything. I request my viewers to pause the video and read all these things thoroughly. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you think that these videos are very useful, kindly subscribe to this channel and share these videos in your social media. Thank you once again for watching this video. Let us meet in yet another video. Until then, bye bye.